Hello everyone, this is JelArts and I'm back with another video for you. And this time it's kind of like a Crayola challenge, but I'm also going to be comparing what it's like to color with Crayola pencils to Prismacolor pencils. So I'm just starting off with the Crayola first. And for both drawings, I inked it on sketchbook paper and then I scanned it into my computer and printed it off onto two smaller, I think they're like 8x10s. I might have cut them down a little bit, onto two kind of like Strathmore drawing paper just to see how Crayolas perform on my good quality paper. And so in order to get proper tones with any pencil crayons, I like to layer a lot of the colors, especially for skin tones, because you don't want to just use one color for the whole skin because that's kind of boring, and it's easier to get deeper shadows and more realistic coloring when you layer all the pencil crayons. So I did that, and I didn't find it as difficult as I was anticipating it. They were actually a lot, like, pretty easy to control. They just didn't like smooth out as well as Prismacolors do. Even when I went over it with the white, it didn't really smooth them out that much. The best way to smooth them out was actually coloring them over really hard with a light pigment, because that actually covers the grains of the paper. So yeah, so like the best way to blend with these was to just start with the darker tones and then build up the mid-tones and then put the highlights over top and press kind of hard with the highlight to blend it all together. That was the best method I found. And here I'm coloring the shirt. I wanted to make it a grayish blue, and I was trying to choose the colors, and a lot of the Crayola colors are kind of misleading because the outer shell, like the outer coating of the pencil crayon, sometimes looked more vibrant than the actual, like when you actually colored with it. It seemed more dull and it didn't look the way it looked on the outside. That was the one thing with Crayola, but once you know like what the color actually is, it's fine. So it doesn't really matter. It was just hard because I don't use these that often. So the pack of Crayolas that I used were the 60 pack. I'd actually really recommend this pack because the color range, it's very varied. There's very varied. There's a large selection of different colors in the package, and it made choosing colors and layering them a lot easier than I was expecting, which was a nice surprise. So if you're gonna get a pack of Crayola, they actually work like surprisingly well. Like I didn't really have too much of a problem with them aside from the fact that they don't blend that easy. Unless like you really work at it, which I did for some areas. In some areas I wanted to leave lighter, like her skirt. I didn't want to overwork it and make it too dark because I'm not very experienced with Crayola pencil crayons, or any pencil crayons in general for that matter. So I wanted to color the hedges in the front there with like a deep turquoise for the shadow and go up to a vibrant green just to add a nice pop of color at the bottom and to kind of like echo the bright green I did at the top and to match her eyes and the yellow on her skirt, so that's why I did that. And Crayola had a lot of really nice turquoise colors that I could use, and they actually blended pretty well, especially I ended up pressing too hard, so I erased a bit of it with that eraser, the blue one. It's like a mechanical eraser, and erasing it somehow blends it in a way, so that was an interesting technique that I discovered. So now I'm just lightly going in with a sky blue color just to finish off the background, just very lightly. I didn't want to overwork the background because I didn't want to like make it look too dark because I like to have light skies. And I'm just going over with the white gel pen just to add some highlights all around her skin and her clothes and her eyes and everything. So here's the final picture for the Crayola. I don't really mind how it turned out. I'm kind of pleasantly surprised by Crayola. So now I'm working on the Prismacolor part of the drawing. And the biggest thing that I had trouble with the Prismacolor that I didn't have trouble with the Crayola markers was that if you pressed really hard, because the cores of Prismacolor Premier pencil crayons are so soft, it actually blends right over top of the line art. And I didn't have problems with the Crayola because they don't blend and they're not as soft. They don't blend as well, and they're not as soft as the Prismacolor ones, and they actually colored like right over top of the line art. So I found myself having to go back over with. I also have the very thin ones, which are basically a harder lead for details. So I had to go over the line art with a black one of those, and even then, it wasn't as sharp as I wanted it to be. And I much prefer how the line art turned out in the Crayola one. Just, I don't know, I might actually like combine Crayola with Prismacolor and see how that is, because I like a lot of the Crayola colors and I somehow find them easier to control. So maybe I will use both from now on. I'm gonna experiment, because I always found that Prismacolor, it blends really well, but almost too well for me to control. So maybe if I added some Crayola to it, it would be easier somehow. Also, I found just comparing Crayola to Prismacolor, they were both equally vivid. The colors are both very bright, and I didn't find exact colors, so it doesn't match completely, but I tried to get the closest hue that I could between the Crayola and the Prismacolor. And the biggest thing about Prismacolor is I really like going over everything afterwards in white, just to smooth it all out, especially with the skin, because skin is very smooth and clothing has more texture, so it doesn't need as much smoothing out. So I smooth it out with the white and then go over the lines with the black, very thin one. So another thing, because the lead is so soft, I found it harder to color in the smaller details like her eyes and clothing folds, because the tip wears down so quickly and becomes more dull, so you gotta sharpen them a bit more if you want a fine tip, or just use the very thin ones, which I attempted to do multiple times, but I didn't have the exact colors in the very thin that I did with the regular Premier ones. So yeah, the Prismacolor ones I'm using aren't the Prismacolor Scholar ones. They're the slightly more pricey ones called the Prismacolor Premier. They have soft cores, so they're good for blending. I don't know if I explained that yet, but there you go. So with the skirt on the Prismacolor one, I was able to go over it in white afterwards to blend it out, but in the Crayola, I didn't find that the white one blended it quite the way I liked it to look, so I didn't do that on the skirt. And I tried to match the bush color to the Crayola, but I didn't find the exact green there. Like, it didn't look exactly the same. And then afterwards, I found one that was like shorter and in the middle, so I didn't see it at first. That would have actually matched a lot better, so I tried to go over it with that, and I did a lot more layering just so I could match the Crayola one, because I didn't want it to seem misleading that like Prismacolor is more vibrant or something, because I actually used more vibrant colors. That's why it looks more vibrant. But I tried to make it look as similar as I could. So overall, the biggest thing I learned from this was that I need more practice with pencil crayons. And also, the next time I do this, I want to do larger drawings, because I feel like Crayola would have been more challenging if it was a larger area, because I think it was easy to control the Crayola for me because it's such a small drawing that I was coloring. So I want to try doing just like a plain, ordinary, cheap Crayola challenge where I do a larger drawing and see how it is to color large areas, because you'll have to control how you lay it down even more. Same with the Prismacolor, I want to do larger ones with that as well, because there's more room for adding and blending, because they're meant to blend. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the difference between how I color with Crayola and how I color with Prismacolor. And overall, I think I actually prefer the Crayola one more. It just has more, it seems to have more life to it, sort of, and kind of deeper shadows, and it just seems to look better to me, all in all. I don't really know why, but I'll have to experiment more to see, is it just the size? Like, if I did a bigger drawing, would it turn out the same? I'm not sure, but I think for this one, I don't quite like how the Prismacolor one turned out, but I'm a bigger fan of the Crayola, so I found that very interesting. Crayola pencil crayons are actually like really good. Their color selection is great, so I'm gonna continue to experiment with both of them. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.